I would pretend that I know what I'm doing, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, but I am a little nervous. Mahrie is always someone I wanted to come on the show, and and we've talked about it, 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 and not only is she coming on the show, she's drawing with me tonight, which is kind of cool.
This is good.
Yeah, this is good. So, are you a little nervous?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Honey, I'm your grandmother.
Hey, listen, I've had my grandmother on the show. Both of them.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, they were both a little scared when I put them in. They got really camera shy. It was hilarious to me.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. No, I've been doing presentations in front of people and in front of cameras since I was 12.
This is no big deal for you at all.
Not really. I mean, that doesn't mean I won't put my foot in my mouth.
But that's a superpower we all should cherish.
But the main thing is I really don't care if I put my foot in my mouth. That's the trick.
Well, yeah, actually that is really the whole of the secret, to be perfectly honest with you, in that as I just put it out there to a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of places. So, I mean, hopefully people take a look at it and we'll get the rocking and to the rolling here, because this is live on a bunch of different places.
Do you get feedback from people as we go type thing?
Oh, absolutely. No, it depends. So for me, I've been building the stream up on Twitch for a while. There we go. I've got everything I need for now. I've been stream for Twitch for a while. It's been kind of my focus, but it's weird because now my audio has gotten insane. Like I get a few days a week where I get 100 plays, downloads in a day, let alone.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. Like I've built my audience up quite well, and I've been doing it for a while. So what's happening now is I'm still going through like ups and downs, because that's just the way it always will roll. But when it comes right down to it, my podcast has kind of built a life of its own, and I've done it pretty much on my own now.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah. So it's led to other opportunities too. I'm now doing like a show for myconsultant.ca. I'm talking about immigration. I'm doing that as a regular paid gig now, which is kind of cool. So now
that's good, yeah. That's good, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've done some freelance writing this year. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to be employed again.
Oh, that's nice. Well, you're employed. It's just that you are your own employer.
Yeah. Well, there's a bit of a difference with that, in the sense that
yeah, I've done the freelance thing too, both in writing and in appraising. So yeah, I've been there, done that. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I actually love it. Although it does come with its ups and downs. What I really I think the hardest thing to figure out when you're a freelancer, and this almost sounds like simplistic, but it took me a long time to really nail this down. I am glorified customer service. That's what freelancing is. It's glorified customer service. It's just, you need to identify who your customers are, what you offer them, and then you scream as loud as you can that you do these things.
Right. And that's not easy for a lot of people to do.
No, but it is simple. Like when you break it down to like that, it's a very doable process.
Most things in life, my mother always used to say, everything is easy once you've been shown how. Or in our world, we're quite able to find areas where we can go and learn how by researching and reading and talking to other people and trying. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about the world, is that it's constantly like, now it's easier than ever to it's easier than ever now to actually learn, which I think is really, really, really fun. Hold on a second.
For those of us that love to learn, it's fantastic.
Oh yeah. Well,
some people don't like to put the effort in.
You have to. Like you
have to, but some people don't like to.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things where I just recognize the fact that for most of us, right? Well, I don't think you have a choice anymore. Like when you get right down to it, you don't have a choice anymore. It's very much a very you either will do this or you will you're gonna get your ass kicked. Like that's just the way it is. You're just gonna get your ass kicked. Because
Right.
we live in a world now where there is no mercies. Like you have no excuses. The knowledge is there. Do you
That's right.
right? Right. So now you might seek permission, I guess. Right. But when you cut right down to it, I just realized that like for the next 10 years or so, I think we're heading to a very dishonest time. So I'm just might as well just be getting to that mother.
I think we're kind of there.
We are. No, we've hit it. Like we're in a very dishonest time. And so now it's going to be interesting because I think all of us are going to have to learn all over again, right? How to deal with each other, but also like how to be, I guess, for lack of a better term, a pirate. Because like I said, in a world like this, in a world like this, the honest person will be burned. I think more often than not. So I think that's my thinking. I could be wrong, but
I hope you're wrong.
I mean, I really want to be,
but I doubt that you're wrong. I'm kind of like, yeah, that's definitely an option for what the world will look like, a viable option.
Well, it's just I see it kind of like I kind of see it like this in the sense that we have done some. I think the path we're going on, by and large, is a mistake. I think there were other ways we could.
Do you think so?
Just a touch.
Well, a lot of people, yes, I don't know that we should go down this road as a conversation here.
No. We don't need to go all the way in. But I will just, all I'm saying is, considering the options we had, I think the honest truth is a lot of us aren't aware of the options we had, and we've gone down this road in good faith. And for me personally, my dad came from Detroit in the '60s when tanks were going into his neighborhood. Because he was a white, yeah, right. So I have that in my background. My grandfather came from Nazi Germany, so I have that in my background too. So so the only thing I will say is, I have a history of my own history to look at to kind of just say, this looks familiar.
That's interesting. I just finished. I did 3 to 4 months work this winter. Or where are we? Yeah, we're heading into winter, so it would have been summer. On my family history, I had a request from the museum in Sherbrooke, Nova Scotia, for information on my grandfather, period. And my mother had left a whole box full of things. And it was very, very interesting when we look at our history. There's so much in our history we don't know. And what I found was some of the good stuff, as well as some of the things like my grandfather was in World War I, my 5 uncles in World War II, and there were repercussions from being overseas during those times. What I found, though, was I found postcards that my grandfather sent home from England to my grandmother. They were already married and had 4 children, including my mother. And one of his postcards said, "Sweetheart, just sweetheart, always and always love, George." So sometimes our history coughs up lovely little kernels that renew our faith in human nature, in that in spite of the overall economic, political, and other major structures that are out there, there are pockets of human people where good things are still happening. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to see that.
This is my theory about life in general. Joy is rebellion. That is the
that works. Works for me.
Yeah, joy is rebellion.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a lot of, for the flip side of what I said, a lot of big decisions are not in my control or in anybody's control. Although I again, we're not going to go into it today. It's just like there's a lot. Let's just say that there are repercussions that are beyond anyone's control. That's
Oh, yes. And they have been in place and are swimming forward quite quickly.
Yes. But that all said, it's not really about the big moments. It's about the little moments.
Yes, it is.
Right. And the fact of the matter is, so when this all started in 2020, I made a very simple promise to myself, and that was this. I wasn't not going to be kind. That was basically my promise. I was never gonna, I wasn't gonna let the cruel nature of where we were going twist me into someone afraid of tomorrow.
That's a good way to go at it, because it's not what happens, it's what each of us does about what happens. It's about how we deal with the things around us. It's how we cope, and it's how we deal with each other within that pocket of our life. And it's very important to make that choice to be kind.
So for me, the moment was I was in Vancouver, train stop, because I was in Vancouver at the time. I'm now in Canmore. So I went from Vancouver to Windsor to Canmore.
Canmore.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I just have a lot of funny things about Canmore, but we're not going there.
Well, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's just like again, it's one of those things. I made a decision about coming. Like, I was originally going to Calgary. It just kind of got derailed for at least this short interim, and I'm okay with that actually for right now.
Well, let's face it. I'm in Didsbury, and a lot of people say, "Huh? Where the hell is?" At least people kind of know where Canmore is. They've heard of it, right?
Yeah, well, I'm making people insanely jealous with all my mountain pictures. It's actually
that's lovely. Yes, that's good. That's a good thing to do. Yeah.
Well, it's those constant little joys and reminder. But to finish my story, remember it was the week of the pandemic, and I will never forget this for as long as I live. How Vancouver was vanishing by the day. Like, people are scared when even like the very like. Downtown Vancouver had like such a character to it, not just the core, but the people, and all of that just miraculously disappeared. There's like 3 moments I will never forget from my time that week, because I got to watch the world slowly disappear, but this was one of them. So I'm on my way. I get off the train. I had to take 2 trains. So during all this, I'm taking 2 trains to go home on top of that, and then either walking or taking a bus the rest of the way home.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and no one in their right mind drives in Vancouver. Just no one in the right mind does it. Right. So
they used to say that about Montreal. Now it's Vancouver. Yeah.
Yeah. So I say it like that because it's a very true statement. So I meet this I still remember this. I meet this guy, he looked like a homeless guy. He might not have been. He might have been someone at work, but he was really, really dirty. He goes to me, "Hey, listen, do you got a pencil or pens like this he wanted to draw?" And I didn't. I legit didn't have anything for him. And I remember this. He held his hand out like this, like a fist bump kind of deal. And I hesitated, and I will never forget that I hesitated for as long as I did, because we didn't know what was going on, and it was a scary moment. And then I just had this one of these eureka moments. How cruel is this time where I hesitate just for contact? And then I made a decision at that moment. That was when I made that promise to myself. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to care. I'm going to be kind to everyone. I'm going to try my best to be understanding to everybody. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be humane in a world that was discouraging that. So I could just bump them right back. And again, not everybody would have done that. But you know what? It's a little thing. And
that's the little things that add up to the big things, the real meaning.
That's it, right? And that's it. I've said the story a few times, but honestly, there's other things about Vancouver I will not forget in that week ever. But for me, that pretty much charted my course, pretty much the whole rest of the way. I'm too old to be scared for some of the bigger stuff. I'm just too old. I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. Life's too short. I'm just gonna keep living.
If you're too old, what am I?
If you that's my point. That's the thing. I think everybody's too old. I mean, life is risk. I learned that a long time ago when I was in my mid-20s. I learned that. So it's just like, you know what? We can go at any time. Life has always been fragile. So in one very real sense, this was nothing new to me. I had already made my peace with it a long time ago. And it's something that like I said, it's shaped how I've approached this. It's very much shaped it's shaped my outlook. And I've decided that I was going to be kind in a world in which that's going to be frowned upon a little bit. But you know what?
Well, I don't know that it's frowned upon, but I think that kindness disappears under the layer of fear that can exist.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be careful that fear doesn't overcome the kindness. People, and a lot of people are not intentionally unkind, but they are so focused on surviving, or what they feel is surviving, what they see as survival, that it comes across isolating them from other people and therefore creating an unkindness around them. Yeah. It's not always a choice. It's not always a conscious choice they might make, but they're afraid. And and that's where most ignorance comes from. You know, all the things that come up between people all stem from ignorance of fact, from fear, from thought of survival. And unfortunately, we've seen in the last, I don't know what period of time, the entitlement that some people feel they have, which has been added to those other lists of ignorance and fear. So yeah, and people therefore come across as unkind.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, fear is the real infection of this time. I feel like it's the real infection. Oh, yeah, and that's my take on it. I've never it's just I'm like, well, so this is my inner comic book geek coming out. My comic book of choice when I was a kid was Green Lantern, and Green Lantern's about overcoming.
I remember fear. Green Lantern, yeah.
Yeah, it's about overcoming.
It was fear. A radio show when I was young.
Nice. So see, I'm a little jealous. I've never heard the radio show for Green Lantern because that's Alan Scott Green Lantern from way back in the day. Way back. And some of that stuff's awesome. Like I've seen some Alan Scott books. They're worth their weight in gold. Now they're actually worth a small fortune. The ones that have survived.
There you go. Yeah.
The ones that have survived. Yeah. It's rare to I saw an All American Comics number 30 on a comic shop's wall, and I'm like, that's a treasure, because they almost don't exist no more. So
and that swings us into the other topic of things that are old and have had value in the past. And what I've been finding, dealing with family history and with family heirlooms and belongings and various other things, there's been a real decline in the value of quality things or memory things. For example, grandma's china, you can't get rid of it anymore unless you take it out and use it for shot practice. People, I mean, a lot of things from the past were important. They were special because they were rare, even at that time when they were new. There weren't a lot of places to go and purchase things. There was no place like Amazon. If you broke something, it was very, very difficult to replace it. Mm-hmm. So people valued what they had. And this is, again, as you say, the overlying thoughts in our current world is that everything is disposable. It's if it breaks, so what? We can get another one. There's no sense of value.
It's when you were a kid, even a little bit when I was a kid, although I was at the edge of it. I saw it like it came to an end when I was a kid. Things are built to last.
That's true.
And that right, things are built to last. Now they're not built to last. They're built to expire because
Oh yes.
and that's
true.
everything. That's cars,
Yeah.
computers. We live in and this is by design.
Yeah, we live in.
Right?
Oh yeah, it is. They want it's a consumer ploy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It totally is. And because it's a consumer ploy, right? Because it's straight up a consumer ploy, what happens is, right, is we have this tendency to dismiss it because we don't recognize unless we're making something ourselves. If we make something ourselves, it's a little different. We have a tendency to
hang on to it.
Well, yeah, because it's because
yeah.
we appreciate the work.
But here's something too. That is true. And I look at something like I've been dealing with things in the house, and I unpacked a box with 2 woolen blankets in it. Now, these woolen blankets have been around since the 20s, at least.
Okay.
At least. They were made by my grandmother on her loom that she brought all the way from Scotland in 1910. So they are home loomed wool blankets.
Ooh.
I went online just to see what people think about them, what you can do with them. And one of the major suggestions was to cut it up and use it for your pets, which it shocked me, to tell you the truth. The one I grabbed was the one where put it on your bed under your fitted sheet, because it's wool is insulating and cooling and heating at the same time. It's all those things. So I put mine in duvet covers and I'm using them, but nobody wanted them. Like, nobody's interested. The museums have been given so much old stuff. They aren't largely interested anymore. Antique dealers aren't interested in a lot of these things. Antique dealers will not generally, unless they specialize in China, they will not take China of any sort, no matter how much it was expensive in the beginning, Royal Dalton or whatever, because they can't get rid of it. They can't resell it. Well, so it's a bit of a shame in a way. So I have here, I will show you this. Can you see this jar? It's a milk jug. Okay. Nice. This also came with my grandmother from Scotland in 1910. It's a milk jug. I'm not sure what the pottery content is. I would never use it for anything edible anymore.
Okay.
And I had it in a box for years and years, and now it holds all my watercolor pencils.
Nice.
So at least I can look at it.
Yeah.
And I see it, and it reminds me of, things and people and whatnot, right? So, it's you cool. Have to. Somebody said, I might as well use my good china every day, because when I go, there's no one to leave it to. It will end up in the thrift store. And that, folks, is the reality.
I'm not sure about that anymore.
Oh, yeah. We find it in the thrift store. I work in a thrift store. We get it in all the time. All the time. Nobody wants it.
I think that's going to change in a couple of short years, actually.
Why? In what way and why?
Because I think, okay, we're going to touch. I think what's about to happen is our whole system is going to go through a major upheaval, and it's already started. So what I think is going to happen is sometime in the next year or two, our dollar is going to be worth fuck all.
There you go.
And when that happens, notice I'm not even saying if, it's just when that happens, what's going to end up happening is I think people aren't going to be able to afford as much. So what are they going to look for?
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right through the whole pandemic, that can already be seen. And
and it's
we
gonna
get
get worse.
Secondhand thrift stores are doing a roaring business
When they're
on,
open, yes. When they're open, yes.
yes,
But
on
yeah,
things like household goods, kitchen goods, bedding, all kinds of things like that. Definitely.
because again, we're looking at things to last. And in a world like now, see, we're still what's going to be happening for I think the next couple years is I think we're going to be breaking some old habits we've had for a long time. One of those habits is going to be I think we're still going to have some disposable shit. I don't think that's going to completely disappear. But what I do think is it's going to be evaluated a lot differently. If someone can find something that's valuable, something that will last them so they don't have to pay any more money. That was the other thing about back in the day. You didn't want to buy shit again.
You didn't have the money to buy shit again.
That's right. And now we're going to go back to that. I see that as an inevitability. So
I know that I've always been, not always. Well, yes, always. I've always been what you might call a secondhand girl.
Yep.
My father was a clergyman. There wasn't a lot of money in clergy work back in the 50s.
Nope.
And my good clothing and regular clothing often came from the missionary barrel at the church, or from a wonderful cousin who I love dearly and was 2 years older than me. I was really disappointed when we hit 12 and 14 and I grew about 4 inches and she didn't. I was out of a source of wonderful clothing.
It's like, damn
it. So I grew up with, and my mother taught us to treasure things because they came from somebody, right? Mm-hmm. She put a good spin on it. One of my most treasured coats. My brother had been in the Air Force Reserves, Air Force Cadets, and he had this Melton wool coat in that sort of dusty blue that the Air Force is known for.
Yep.
And when he moved on, the coat was there. And I remember the dressmaker. We had a dressmaker. We didn't go to the store to buy clothing. We had a dressmaker. We had a lady that came to the house. And she took that coat all apart and recut it for me when I was about 10. And I love that coat. Partly because it was really warm and it looked really cool, but partly because it had belonged to my older brother, Jim.
Aww.
You know, so.
It's cool.
So, and I think that's where, in the past, value in some things has come from is because they belonged to people.
Absolutely.
And so they came with memories.
Mm-hmm.
But those memories only make it down probably one generation, maybe two.
Sometimes 3, but that's about it.
Sometimes, but that's rare.
Yeah, it's rare.
My mom's silver, community silver chest, community chest silver. She had 16 place settings, 7 supper sets or 8 supper sets and 8 dinner sets. So when one of my girls got married, I gave her the dinner set. And she loved to have it because she remembers having to clean it when she went to grandma's house.
Nice.
And her twin has the other set, or will have the other set. I can't remember if I've given it to her yet or not, but yeah, it's but it's interesting too. We talk about abundance, and abundance is its own curse.
It can be, yes. You appreciate nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
You appreciate nothing.
I mean, I look at kids today. God love them. They have more stuff than they can ever use.
Yeah. I came to that, like, I'm going to blame your generation for this a little bit.
No, not necessarily my generation, but the one after me. You got to realize my oldest son is 50. 52. He'll be 52 next month.
Okay, no, then I can add you to this list. Now I'll tell you why I can add you to this list.
Okay.
You came from an era where nothing came easy.
Nope.
Right. And then so your kids grew up post that. Right.
True.
And they kind of made a conscious decision. You know what? I'm going to make sure my kids have it better than I did, which is what you had. It was your philosophy too. I mean, that's one thing I did carry. So your kids got it better. Their kids got it better. But what happens is, it's
exponential.
There's an exponential part of it, but there's another part of it too that a lot of people don't think about. Most of us are comfortable today.
Oh yes.
They have never been through like I can tell, and I say this, and I'm going to sound like an old man talking to clouds here for a minute here. Mm-hmm. I remember starving. I remember not knowing where my next meal was coming from, where my next paycheck was coming from. I've been through adversity. So when I do get something, I appreciate it, right? Now, I'm not always still the most responsible with it. I mean, I'm not perfect. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But I remember what I had to do to get it. If you're born and all these things are given to you, you come to expect it.
Well, that's it. That's that entitlement thing, right?
Yeah. Well,
you're entitled to it. You get it. You expect to keep getting it.
Yeah. And again, you can't completely blame them for that.
No. But, right? And that is, and again, you can't paint everybody with the same brush. There were variations within all of that. But I can remember my kids wondering why they got 2 or 3 things for Christmas, maybe one of which had actually come off their wish list. The others were probably new pajamas and things like that.
Underwear was a gift of choice from my grandmother every year.
No, yeah, okay. Well, we never quite made it to the underwear, but pajamas would make the list. Whereas the young lad next door, who was within 2 weeks of age of my oldest boy, if he made a Christmas list, he got every gall darn thing on the list.
Sure.
And although we as parents were comfortable, we were not what you would call flush.
well, no, but that's the thing, right? I remember, I've moved around and I've seen a lot. I still remember once upon a time, I lived in a place called Oshawa, Ontario.
I know Oshawa. Yeah.
Yes.
I lived in the other Ottawa.
So my dad was a truck driver at that point in his life. And he had his buddy that worked at GM, which has always been good money in that area.
Yeah.
So his kids got everything. And I mean everything.
I had a couple of cousins like that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but again, my dad and this guy were great friends. They were great friends. So my buddy would tell my dad, "Your son's a great kid." My dad would go, "But I got him nothing." And it's one of those, I think it's an honest, I got him nothing.
Yeah.
And I go, "You got your kid everything." "Yeah, but look at my kids." Right? They expect everything. Yours is good.
Yeah.
Right? And so there are trade-offs to everything.
Yes.
Right? There are trade-offs to everything. And I think overall, kids today are smarter than the kids than I was. They're not necessarily wiser because of the nature of how we grew up.
Well, they haven't had to make choices sometimes that would have been hard choices.
Exactly.
And when they did make choices, they didn't always have repercussions they had to live with,
Mm-hmm.
which is that lack of responsibility is one of the biggest undercutting factors in character,
Mm-hmm.
in solid character.
It's how you build character. It's one of those things where I made the decision when the pandemic started that I'd quit and I'd be a freelancer. So I went back home just because a couple of reasons. I wanted to see my dad and my grandmother and my family, because I figured, well, during the pandemic you might as well, right?
If you're living with them, you're close enough you can see them. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also just, again, it's just my own personal thing. Now I'm back out here because I want to be a little bit more uncomfortable again, because it will force me to grow.
Yeah.
And whereas if I stayed there too much longer, I'm not saying I wouldn't have stopped growing, but it would have been, I didn't have those responsibilities.
It would have slowed the process a bit.
Yeah. No, again, it's a very, I can appreciate being uncomfortable. Right. And the good, the bad, and the different that comes from that. Right.
Well, I was lucky on both counts in two ways. Growing up, my father was the minister. There was not a lot of money. He married my mom when she was a widow with 2 children. And then they had myself and my younger brother. So they had 4 kids on $1,500 a year. And mind you, it was 1950, but still $1,500 didn't go very far, even in 1950.
No, it didn't.
But my father was a farmer growing up. He's a Manitoba fire boy. So they had huge gardens, and he grew things.
Absolutely.
Right? And he and Mom bottled things and canned things and made apple jelly. And quite often supper was pancakes.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that at all.
And a good meat meal was considered cow's tongue, which I think I would have been able to eat it if Mom hadn't sort of stuck a fork in the whole tongue and flopped it on the middle of the table before she got it.
That's awesome.
But my parents were there. My mother was the mother on a rainy day who had the art class on the front veranda with leftover crayons and ironed out brown paper bags. And everybody, all the kids in the neighborhood came and they loved it. So my parents, and there was never any doubt, we were loved. We were always warm. We were always fed, even if it was cow's tongue.
That's right.
We were always dressed, even though it was hand-me-downs. And we always felt safe.
Yeah.
So we had the benefit of the security emotionally, and the benefit of things being a little tight and learning how to use things in creative ways.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
No, it's one of those really real, like, life things. Like, so for me, hold on a second, I'm just gonna do something real quick. Ugh. So when I grew up between, so I kind of saw a little bit of everything as a kid. My dad moved around a lot, and I still remember when Mom and Dad were living together. I still have some memories of that. Even at 40, I still remember that. I remember the very nasty conclusion to that. Unfortunately, that there some things you can't unhear or unsee. Unfortunately,
no, that's true. That's true.
But afterwards, Dad raised me, and so what would happen is I would spend my fall, winter, spring with Dad, and summers with my grandmother for about 3 years in Detroit. And so I got used to secondhand stores. My grandmother's from Malta. My grandmother there's from Malta. So if anyone's ever seen anyone from Malta during World War II, yeah, right. My grandmother's the best negotiator I've ever seen in my life. Ever. but
Yeah, well, my mother was the best make-doer of all things. She spent 10 years as a widow in the 1930s, when there were no jobs for women.
mm-hmm.
There was no Social Security. Um, her husband had drowned. She was left a widow at 24 with my older brother and sister. And she literally had nothing, like nothing. She lived in her mother's summer kitchen, which was basically a closed-in porch. And my grandparents didn't have a whole lot either. And like you, my brother had said to his wife at one point years ago that he can remember days where one meal a day was about what they were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he doesn't really remember having a pair of shoes that fit properly until after Mom married my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So Mom went through that, but she never lost her sense of humor, and she could always make things out of nothing. That woman, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
because what happens in a time like that, right? This is what happens when you go through those things. You find out who you are. You just find out, and once you find out, it's usually pretty amazing. Actually, like I said, I remember my hard times very much because they made me who I am today. Right? They made me, for good or ill, relatively fearless.
Yeah.
Because I know that I can survive some very, very, very difficult times. I know I can do it because of what I've been through. I know who I am. You always remember that stuff because you got nowhere to go, but you got nowhere to run and hide. You're just you, right? And it's kind of like the coolest thing ever too, because suddenly you find out you can do things you never thought were possible. And suddenly you're just this. I'm sure your mom is the same like all of us. Like, what the hell am I going to do? And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm going to do what I have to. And
yeah, she lived one day at a time. She did what she had to do.
Exactly. So we're, like I said, I think a lot of what this is right now, what that was, I think that's coming back. I think.
Well, it may have to.
Yeah.
It will be a necessity.
Yeah. I think it's coming back because I think it's one of those life. I think the universe gives us to some degree, I think, a grace period. Right. And if we
screw it up, they take it away.
Yeah, that's it. I've learned, this is one of the biggest things I've learned interviewing people. I can usually tell if someone's going to succeed, and a big part of that is an appreciation of the journey of how you got there and understanding that journey. And I find again, we've been used to this abundant way of being for so long, we've become, I think, as a whole, complacent. So if that's the case.
Yeah, I see that in the generation after me, and most definitely in the next generation below that.
Yeah, which would be my generation.
And even my husband and I have always been frugal people.
Yeah.
It's our nature. We're also very fortunate in that we never felt the need to jet around and stay in hotels and go to fancy beaches and things like that. It just never appealed to us. Yep. Maybe because we were sort of semi-country folks. So, we did have a travel trailer. John and I went to the Yukon in our travel trailer in 1994 and lived in it from April till September in Dawson City and worked at whatever job we could do for pickup. And we were in our mid-40s at that time.
See, I would totally dig finding someone like that now, because I'm going to be that way, I think, for the foreseeable future.
So how old are you, if you don't mind saying
40.
so? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, so there you go. I was John and I have been married 28 years, second time around for both of us. And so we were in our, when we met, he wasn't quite 40 and I was just over, we're about 3 years older than him. So yeah. And we did a lot of stuff through our 40s and into our 50s in terms of travel and doing stuff, which is good because now, even with the pandemic, we probably wouldn't be doing a lot of traveling because we've been there, done that. We're happy to stay home.
And at this point in my life, I'm about ready to become even more rebellious because I don't give a shit, right? And it sounds like, and I know some people listening to this will probably say that's terrible. It's like, no, it's just the way it is. Like I only have now.
That's right.
I only have now, and
you have the moment you're in, and that's it.
That's it. There's no right time or wrong time. There's just now.
No.
Right?
My sister was coming home from getting groceries and got T-boned and killed, and boom, dead.
Yep.
She was 54.
Yeah.
She had tickets, and I had talked to her the night before, and we hadn't talked long because I said, "Oh, I'll see you tomorrow."
Nope.
Because she was flying home the next day, and she didn't make it.
Nope. Life is incredibly fragile and short.
Unpredictable.
That's the best part about life.
Although there's a few things that are somewhat semi-predictable. If you jump out of a plane without a parachute, you really lower your odds of success.
This is true, but then again, who knows? Maybe
but that's stupidity or desperation.
Well, here's the thing: if I'm gonna have to jump out of a plane for that reason, I might as well see if I can learn to fly. I got nothing to lose at that point.
Well, if you got a big jacket, you put your hands in your pockets and you spread your arms out so you can at least get some air friction to slow you down.
Well, yeah.
What was it? That's in one of Dan Brown's books.
Yeah. Well, no, I would, you know what? I just say fuck it. Might as well learn how to fly. You know, I mean, really, if I screw up, I'm not have to worry about it anymore. I mean, it's kind of one of those. Right, no fear, because you're here. You got to do what you got to do, and that's really all there is to it. Right, and right, I look at it like at this particular point in time, this is where I'm at in my life. I really don't know much. I'm just gonna do shit because, well, that's how I'm wired, and that's what I'm gonna do. I don't have to cooperate with anybody anymore. That's a glorious thing. I got nothing. I don't have much to my name, so there you go. I have nothing.
Very little to lose, eh?
Yeah.
The only thing you have to lose is your self-esteem if you should be unkind.
That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I don't.
And that you have a fair amount of control over.
Yep.
No matter what else happens.
Yep. Well, here's the thing. I'm here to have a time, an experience. Fuck it, I'm going to live. I'm too old.
Well, here's the philosophy of life that I have come to at my wise old age here.
Oh, okay.
I'm on this spaceship called Earth.
Yep.
I'm here to live, learn, have fun, and help others do the same.
It's not a bad way to be. Can't argue with you.
So that's kind of what it comes down to. Say, are you doing any writing now, or are you doing mostly the podcast stuff? And
I released 2 books so far during the pandemic, and I have a 3rd one coming out in December.
Okay, and the topics?
So, so the first one was a novel. Basically, it's The Matrix meets Indiana Jones. I wrote this when I was in IFLA back in Calgary, and I did the perfection of the draft, or as close to perfect as I was. My first novel. It was it's The Matrix meets Indiana Jones. It's called The Cloud Diver. It's out now. You can definitely
nice.
want to.
Nice.
Yeah. So that came out March. So again, when the pandemic started, I did an audiobook on my podcast. I started doing the Cloud Diver audiobook. I released the digital in May, and then I had authors come in and read their own books through it. Because again, one of my other heroes in this time was C.S. Lewis.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis did what would go on the radio and do Mere Christianity, what became Mere Christianity when London was being bombed. Not during the easy times, the hard times. I thought, what an absurd thing to do. And it's like, no, that's the best thing to do.
That's the best thing to do. Yeah.
Life goes on. Life goes
Yep.
on. And that's, again, joy is rebellion. So there's that. The second book I released, next two books that I've released is, so Colleen Anderson came to me and asked me to do a Lewis Carroll epic style poem. And I was at a loss of what to do because, like, what the fuck can I say about Lewis Carroll that has not been said? So that night, I go to a bar and I meet a girl with a gorgon tattoo on her arm.
Okay.
I go to make a move. She plays for the other team. It's okay. We're still good friends, right? So
it all works.
It all works out, right? But she had this cool little thing. I asked her if I could, and it's like, I could put Medusa in Alice in Wonderland. Why can't I? And then that led to, oh my God, Alice is Pandora. So I wrote the poem. I submitted it to Colleen. It was one of the last things cut in her anthology. She liked it. It's just she had so much material to choose from. So, but I kept going with it. So I got an illustrator to do some illustrations. So Alice Zero came out last year. It's nominated for the Elgin Award this year.
Nice.
Alice One, the sequel, which is actually a big ass book. It's a 200-page poem. Right? It's a big ass. So
that's a big ass poem.
It's a big ass poem, right? So it's Alice in Wonderland as Greek mythology. So Alice is Pandora. She opens the box, and a certain Cheshire friend is now inside her head. And Alice is Pandora. The Wonderland characters, all the Wonderland characters have their Greek equivalents. For example, the Mad Hatter is Kronos. Why? Because Kronos kills time. So does the Hatter.
Okay.
It's a clever little mashup. The cat is also a Greek. I'm not gonna spoil that because that.
No, don't tell too much because you
no. But the idea is Alice is now trying to restore the kingdom of Wonderland. She's going to all these different worlds scattered across this multiverse, finding pieces of. And every time she gets a piece of Wonderland or a piece of her story, she remembers pieces of it.
Okay.
Right? And she remembers pieces of it. So this is a journey for Alice to find the way home, which is very Wonderland.
Kind of a Wonderland, Greek mythology, Wizard of Oz.
Very much so in some ways, yeah. Kind of. Except there's no wizard, there's no Oz.
That was about the journey home, I think. I don't know. I just much of a Wizard of Oz person, but yeah.
But yeah, so I did that. So Alice Zero, she wakes up in an insane asylum, and the playing cards are her jailers. Alice One, she's playing croquet against Jason of the Argonauts in the Greek underworld. That's the base story. And then I have two more books in that series, and I know what they are.
Nice.
Yeah. So
okay, this is yeah. I wonder if now is the time to tell you that the one book in my whole life that I disliked to the point of hatred was Alice in Wonderland.
I can see why.
I just never, maybe if I had been older when I tried it or whatever, but no,
I didn't read it. I didn't read Alice when I was younger. I read it now because I needed to understand the myth, again, to match.
Yeah,
my background.
Well, apparently he was pretty high when he wrote it, so so maybe a gummy bear of some kind would help the understanding.
Well, okay, so I found a little gem when I was in Windsor. I found it's called the Annotated Alice in Wonderland. So it's all the notes.
Annotated. Wow.
No, it's neat because it has all the notes of everything he had put into Alice in Wonderland.
Right.
Some of it is actual pop culture references and puns from his time. That's why some of it doesn't age very well. Right. Some of it is incredibly neat in the sense that there are definitely some layers to what he said. Like for one, and not spoiling too much, one of the most fascinating things about Carroll is nobody is actually a person in his stories.
Okay.
And that I thought was a really fascinating thing because of the way he references nobody, right? First time you hear it, when the queen says, who does the queen kill? Nobody. You're like, oh, okay, queen's harmless. And then you see nobody is referenced in other
Oh,
works.
okay. Nobody is,
So
somebody,
it's no,
nobody is a body.
so
Yeah, yeah,
nobody
yeah,
is
yeah.
actually a person. And that's a fascinating interpretation of that, right? So
You give me a whole new perspective on this thing.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things where it's definitely not for the young. Like, it's definitely not. I don't really think. I think Alice as a kid story is okay.
Well, the version that we had was a huge hardbound book with hand-painted color plates all the way through it. It was an amazing piece of art, even if it wasn't much of a story for a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old. I wouldn't mind having the book now because it was probably, my mom had it for years, so I'm saying it was probably late 20s version.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Annotated is, I think, a 70s version, a 1970s book, right? Which is, again, it's interesting because I have a very different perspective on it. I would not have had when I was younger. But I see why people do Alice in Wonderland retellings. I really do, because there's a lot to play with there. There's a ton to play with. So I get it now in a way that
that you wouldn't have when you were younger. Yeah.
Oh God, no! It wouldn't have been for me when I was younger either. Like, it's not.
Well, my biggest output in the past. It took me a long time. As you know, I have 35 years of writing and learning and all that jazz. Although I've been writing since I was around 10 or 12. But I really started to study the craft when I could as a single parent raising 2 daughters. You kind of did it when you could. I worked 60 hours a week and wrote in my sleep pretty much.
Yeah, I've been there myself.
So I'd been asked by various people. So this year I compiled it. And a few months ago, put out this book.
Tools, not rules. Yes.
Write your book your way. Because I think it's really, I started learning tools about language and writing at the kitchen table in the 50s because my mom was a writer, a poet, and an English teacher. So, yeah. So I just sort of, so that was a major goal for me, to be able to pass on to others all that stuff that other writers had taught me over the last 35 years. So, and I have a few other things on the go.
So I again, going back to the freelancer thing at this point. So the next book I have, I'm writing and I'm illustrating it. So nice. my new skill for the last bit. I'll show you a couple. I've been doing these as we've been going here.
Right. There you go.
Getting the hang of it, bit by bit by
bit.
So what I'm doing is so my sister got me like some art stuff when I first went to Windsor. It's like, do something a little different and challenge yourself.
Right.
So for the first 8 months, I didn't do a damn thing. Right. There was again, not much scares me in this world, but this actually did. And it took me a long time to figure out why. And the reason it scared me was, well, what if it's bad? And I had this glorious thought shortly thereafter. It's like, so what if it's bad?
So right? What?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Honestly, so this has helped in my evolution. Also, drawing has definitely impacted. Like, my next book after Alice is a homage to Fahrenheit 451 called Lights Out.
Okay.
Right. It's so for 30 days, a gentleman by the name of Montag gets sentenced to 30 days without technology. Instead of actually doing a prison sentence, they just turn a switch off and he's completely cut off. The lights are off. So who are you when you're cut off from this technology? But again, it's a homage to Fahrenheit 451. So what I'm doing is all the things that I really loved about Fahrenheit 451, which is like the discovery of an art form, a craft, creation. When you look at what happens in Montag when he discovers reading, he feels emotions. He becomes more through the experience of reading and through. In fact, he meets this very, very, very eccentric teenager named Clarice who looked at the world with a kind of magic he never did. And he wanted a piece of that for himself. And in that magic kind of discovered his soul. That's what I love about Fahrenheit 451. It's about like finding your soul in the darkest of places, which I think is a very ironic thing. But a very true thing is in those dark places, there's just us. And we have to make a decision of who we are going to be in these dark times. So this is my little homage, but I decided that I was going to do illustrations. And so there's a lady I interviewed. Her name is Nikki Nash. And there's this picture of her with the guitar. And I looked at that. It's the first time I've ever looked at a picture of somebody and went, this is who you are. Like, this is unequivocally who you are. I've never had that reaction looking at a picture before. It was like, okay, do you mind if I kill you in my novel? She's like, sure, why not?
Why not?
But people have this really weird. People have this really weird concept that I've noticed this. People are okay if you killing them in your novel. So the only way to actually truly punish people is make them fan fiction. That's how you truly punish somebody.
Okay, fine. So in this homage to, what you're describing is what I grew up, but I was a child when I was growing up, obviously, and we had no television. We had a radio. That was the only thing we had for a long time. Yeah. So, and we never missed it because you don't miss what you've never had.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool.
Yeah, but I did it as a kid, so and I did it not knowing that those things might eventually be out there. Having had all of those things and had them taken away, people say to me, well, do you need, wouldn't you like a bigger house or whatever? And I think, well, no, we need a kitchen and a bedroom. That's, we don't need, but for our lifestyles, a kitchen and a bedroom is good. I want an office with my computer and my books. And he has a garage that is somewhat larger than most garages because we did build the house. And he's got all kinds of tools because he is creative in that hands-on way, the way that some of the rest of us are creative in books. So we need our workshops. But that's all we really need is our workshops, our food, and someplace to sleep.
No, you don't. Again, I've had everything taken from me. What I learned very quickly in that environment is I didn't learn it quickly. I was angry at first. And then then inevitably, again, it's one of those things you just realize you're powerless to do it. So you got to look at what you have and what you haven't. And once you go through that experience, again, I'm going to be somebody's worst nightmare, I think, in the years to come because there's not much you can take from me. I've already had everything taken from me, right? Yeah. So it's hard to break somebody that way a second time. So when you go through those moments in your life, you just realize. So I have comic books over here I really like. So I got some stuff I enjoy reading. I got stuff I enjoy creating. I have people I love. Shrug for everything else. Like most of the rest of it doesn't really fucking matter. Right?
I really like. I mean, the people are the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I really, really, really like flush toilets and bathrooms.
No. So
sorry.
No. I agree with you. No. So, but like one of the biggest when I was in Arizona when I went through my hell on earth, the thing I missed the most. So my hot water tanks were always small when I was living out there. So I never could get a really good. I still remember one time that my girlfriend at the time, me and her were going to do some really fun things, and things got cold real fast, so we had to go elsewhere. right? But it's like one of the things I remember about Canada has big hot water heaters. They have big ones comparatively. And this is what, again, there are luxuries that are really,
There are
really nice,
luxuries. I
right?
have been in the situation with a bedchamber pot under the bed and the
Mhm.
outhouse down over the hill.
Mhm.
And I don't ever, ever, ever want to go back
No,
to
you
that
don't.
at
No, no.
all.
Oh no, you
If I
don't.
had to, I'd survive, but I really wouldn't
No,
choose it.
so here's the thing. When you get right down to it, civilization can literally be measured by the quality of your hot water tank and toilet paper. That
Yeah.
is not a joke. That is not a joke.
Oh God, yes, I hear you.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Again, this
man.
this is
By the
why this
way,
like
do you see behind me here
yeah,
this painting?
yeah,
I painted that. This is you plan to do something, right?
yeah.
And sometimes the best things come out of no plan.
Mm-hmm,
I was going to paint something else because I do paint night with another gal like this. We do it
mm-hmm.
2 hours. Anyway, I was going to paint this other picture and I started and there was no way. I just couldn't get into it. But I had all these paints out on the palette. So I had to do something. So I just went and got a leftover canvas that I gessoed and I started with the sky and kept going. And that's
Nice.
what it ended up. No sketching in advance, nothing, just all paint work. And I had been a little nervous about doing all paint work. I usually made sure I had a sketch to start with anything I was doing. So it's quite freeing to actually do something you've been avoiding.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm working on here tonight.
Ah, so I'm working
I've
on.
been doing a lot of painting recently, and then I started to doodle, and I've gone back to doing black and white sketches of mostly I like buildings and trees.
Well, I'm still building, and I'm discovering. For me, I've been doing like stuff like anime. I've been doing stuff like comic book stuff. I've been
Oh
doing stuff
yeah,
like book art. Like
that stuff's tricky.
some of it.
Yeah, it can
And
be
the thing
tricky.
is, so Lego officially kicked my ass. Lego kicked my ass. Again, it's the things that you don't think are going to get you that get you. So
Mhm.
for me personally, so I will never forget this. Lego and Jigglypuff owned me completely.
Well, it's true too. You talk about that fear you might have had of starting to draw, to do artwork of any kind. And people say to me, "Well, you're doing some pretty, decent stuff and that I'm talented." But here's the trick. When I was young, I wanted two things. I wanted to take tap dancing and I wanted to learn to play the violin. What I got was elocution lessons and art lessons.
Huh.
And I'm sure it must have been karma because the two of those things have certainly served me well over the years. But I have taken art instruction every decade of my life. So I have a lot of skills that they're not talent, they're learned techniques.
Mm,
So, like I said, my mom said earlier, you can do anything once you've been shown how.
it's true.
So,
Mm,
and there are some very talented people who can create some amazing paintings, drawings, or whatever. That's just amazing. But for me, it's a result of learned technique
mm-hmm. And that's fine.
and practice, practice, practice.
I think that's everybody. Everybody has to practice a little bit. No, or a lot in some cases. But I think what it comes right down to, and this is what I've learned is, are you going to show up and do it? That's
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah.
it. It doesn't. The rest of it almost doesn't matter. And this seems like incredibly dumb to say that, but like as I've gotten older / wiser, we'll leave wiser to smarter people than myself. I will. What I've learned is what I really care about with anybody I'm working with or around is if they want to be there and if they want to do it with me.
Yeah.
That's it.
For sure.
That is actually essentially it.
That's essentially it. There are one or two minor caveats in
Sure.
terms of I really, really would like my brain surgeon, if I ever needed one, to have had a little more background than just willingness and showing up.
Yeah, but you know what? I've seen this.
He had to show up for the training, which where his showing up, his or her showing up would have come from.
Yeah. But here's what I've learned, and I've learned this with doctors too. They can be giant fuck ups themselves. There are some doctors you talk to them once, you're like, nope, I ain't letting you touch anything here because I've listened to you,
and I don't like it.
I don't think you give a shit, or I think you have other things in mind besides my health, and I'm not. I listen to what I think works. Now again, I don't know everything, and not even close. But there are some things
you start to have a sort of an innate sensing of whether you're being bullshitted or not.
I wonder with some people. I really do. I wonder with some people. What I've learned. This is what I've learned. I don't, and I heard this actually on another podcast. Is never detach yourself from outcomes. If you can do that, you always have an open mind and you can listen. This show has taught me how to listen. And when I listen and I hear you and I hear what you're saying, I will assume it's true until your words or actions prove me wrong. When your words and actions kind of conflict with what you're saying, so the first thing I go is like, okay, am I not understanding something? Because I could be, I could be an idiot.
There's always a learning curve for all of us.
That's right. So again, all this stuff's benefit of the doubt. But when I see an action that contradicts what is being said, and I don't care who does it. I don't care if it's a government. I don't care if it's a company. I don't care if it's a person. The moment I see that, I no longer take you seriously. I no longer take your word for granted. I don't trust you. I'm going to treat you like you aren't worth a fiddler's fuck. And that's basically because
that'll do it.
Yeah, but yeah, that's it. That is my criteria. That is the only criteria I have, and it's amazing how many people that's all I'm looking for, and it's amazing how many people sometimes fall short of that curve. Just be consistent. Yeah. That's all I want. I don't need to agree with you. Just be consistent.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is having it's not a laissez-faire attitude, but I can handle anything attitude, is that you can smile and walk away. Mm-hmm. I used to be intimidated. Now this is going to sound funny. I used to be intimidated by tall women.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm not short. I'm 5'5", you know. Mm-hmm. But I used to be, for some reason, I went through a number of years where I would be intimidated by tall women, even when I knew they were full of crap. I was intimidated by their height somehow. And I've often wondered what on earth happened that caused me to have that reticent or fear of someone bigger than me, particularly females bigger than me. Tall men didn't bother me. I kicked them in the shins if I had to, but that was never an issue. But for a long time, tall women intimidated me. I got over it eventually. I'm not even sure how or why, but at some point I just decided this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I stopped. But yeah, it's funny how things so much can imprint on us, and it can run a tape in the back of our heads that will control us. Mm-hmm. And it's important to learn that you have those tapes, and then how to tell them to fuck off.
Well, so I came to this conclusion about when I was fixing my teeth. There was a situation I lost a friendship. My fault somewhat. But I came to a recognition that my friend did not trust me, which made me reevaluate the whole friendship. And I came to a very interesting realization about people, because I was going through a very interesting period where I was getting shunned by a lot of different things, and the thing that was in common was me. And I was like, okay, so what is happening with me that's letting people do this? And then I realized something very, very real. Everybody does exactly what they want to do. Always. The only question is, are they aware of what wants they're serving, or do their wants control them? That's it. That's the only real question. Either way, a want is being served. It's which want is being served. And
Yeah.
when I came to that realization, one, I realized that this was about what I wanted, and what I wanted was not good enough for me anymore, and I wanted to be treated better. So I made a decision at that point. From there on in, I was going to be treated better.
You get what you expect.
Exactly. And even to the point where it's like, you know what? Even if I'm hanging around with nobody, I'd rather that than being treated like shit. I'm not going to be taken for granted by anybody. Right. This has also impacted my freelancing. This has impacted. I have fired clients that haven't fulfilled my standards. Right. I have done it because it's.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh! I have things that pop into my head.
There are four reasons to fire a client. By the way, the same four reasons apply to the freelancer. So 2 of them are forgivable, are actually eminently forgivable, right? In order. You're not ready. I think this is easily the most forgivable of all offenses. Sometimes you're just not where you need to be, right? You may not get a second chance with those people. Then again, you might. But the thing is, it's not. I never think there's hard feelings with that one. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's just like it just didn't work out. That's cool. For whatever reason, wasn't ready. Emotional instability. That one is very tricky because things happen. Things happen in life. Things, and understanding that shit happens is a very good thing. The line is, as both a freelancer or a client, how much are you willing to carry of the other person's burden? There's only so much you're supposed to.
Yes.
It's less forgivable than the first one, but it's still, depending on the situation, is forgivable.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
In a way. And it's self-preservation in a way.
Oh, absolutely. No. And no. Again, it's same thing. There can be hard feelings on this one, but also depending on it's very much circumstantial dependent. Like the circumstances definitely dictate this. And very easily that emotional stability just can come to the conclusion, I'm not ready to do this right now. Which again, that is fair, right? That's totally fair. Number 3, the client or the freelancer does not listen to the advice or the recommendations of the freelancer or client.
Yeah.
Much more fireable on the freelancer end in terms like the freelancer doesn't listen to the client, they're going to get fired.
Yeah.
The only out with that one is sometimes the result is better, but you better be damn sure, because if you're not, this one's pretty brutal, right? Number 4.
They think they know better than the person they've hired.
Yes.
And are not willing to even discuss it.
That's actually so those leads to number 4, which is the worst one. If the freelancer or the client does not get the information necessary to actually perform the task, there is no forgiveness there, because there's nothing anybody can do.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's in that order. Every reason, but this goes both ways. It's not just the freelancer firing the client; it's the client firing the freelancer too. Because if the freelancer breaks any of these rules, they are subject to termination as well. It's a very, very, it's a quiet code. And what I realize with that is, There are people I will do business with. Again, it depending on which rules they break, but there are some. One client I fired broke 3 of the 4 rules. The only one they didn't
Whoa.
break. The only one they didn't break, and they were late paying me too. So on one of them, so it's like it's an added like boom on top of that, right?
Wow.
So it's again, it's but going back to what I'm saying, it's a I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to listen to you. And what I mean by that is I'm going to watch your actions. And if your actions are going to tell me what you really want, and I am going to believe you 100%. Right? And that's it. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to give you what you want. Consequently, that might make me a bit of a dick sometimes. But you know what? I would rather that than resent doing a job for somebody.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is too, you do the job, there's a certain outcome, and that certain outcome reflects on you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, there's
that's why number 1 is the most, like the number of the 4th one on my list is the most unforgivable, and the 3rd one
because it damages all around.
Yeah. There's no coming back from that. Like, and I'm very conscious of that because it's just like, well, because if this goes tits up, then whereas okay, so right now I'm doing a show for a client. Right now I'm helping build this show up. It's their show. I do push back because again, I'm trying to make the best show possible. That's the only angle I'm coming from. It's their show. Yeah. I'm not here to dispute that. It's their show. I'm doing what I'm being asked of me, what I'm being paid to do. But again, it's in my best interest. There's always open communication. Mm-hmm. They've gone out of their way to help me with some things and vice versa. We've been building this show episode by episode. This week's show was great. Next one's going to be even better. The next one's going to be even better. And there's going to come a point where it hits a certain plateau of where we want it to be, and that's going to be great. And then it's about maintaining it. That's a good business relationship.
Well, that's like I do some mentoring. Mm-hmm. I mentor people who are referred to me from someone I trust. Mm-hmm. When I am looking at a manuscript, if I am suggesting changes or suggesting something doesn't work, I always explain why. Mm-hmm. Why is it confusing? Why is it this? Why is it that? I never just say, this is wrong. Because mm-hmm. nothing is wrong. Some things just don't fit sometimes. Mm-hmm. But it's a matter of communication. And I work for my own work. I work with an editor who works like that as well. So he can say to me, you really maybe want to look at this because. Mm-hmm. And it's good because then I learn something from him, mm-hmm. as well as get a better manuscript for myself. So, but it's as you say, but I won't work with. There's some people I have worked with, mm-hmm. and I spend time, and I give them feedback, and I explain why I'm asking or suggesting, mm-hmm. and they say yes, 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 and they send back the next draft, and then one thing has been changed. Nope. One thing that didn't matter. Like they don't listen. Well, I'm not going to waste my time and all the things I've learned at this stage in my life helping you to do a better product if you don't want to hear me.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
But I love working. I have a couple of people I'm working with right now, and they're just absolute joy to work with. Because I'll say this, because this. What do you think? Oh yeah, but I could do this, and I could do like they just they're right into doing a better job.
Yeah,
and I love working with people like that.
Yeah, that again, because it's not personal. It's just coming from it's just coming from a very very specific place. And once you understand what that place is,
right?
There's nobody's feelings is getting hurt. Right? I get told, even with my current job, there are things I'll ask for. I get no's. I get a decent amount of no's. But I'm not afraid to ask either because sometimes they say yes. Right?
Well, there you go. Yeah.
right? Because that's what you want. You don't want, you want the best possible
outcome for
that's it.
everybody, for
Yeah,
everybody involved.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right? It's in my best interest to have the best possible outcome too. That's it. It's not, there isn't rocket science to this for me. But again, I've learned all this as a human being. I've learned this with people. I am going to let you do whatever it is you want to do. I'm not going to fight you. But
you asked my advice, here it is. Take it or leave it.
Well, it's more than that too, in the sense that what I'm going to do is I'm not going to fight you, which sometimes pisses people off even more. But it's like, I'm giving you what you want. This is what you want. And if I'm misunderstanding you, please explain it to me. But I'm not. I've had a couple guests come on the show. I remember this. A couple people, they would wait until about an hour before the show would begin. And they go, "Hey, listen, can we only go 20?" And I've told them they're going to be like going about an hour. And they're waiting until like the very end. Like, can we go only so long? I got this stuff to do and this stuff. And I get it. Like life happens. I'm again.
Okay, speaking of that, how long are we going tonight?
Well, I figure we're going to go about another 10 minutes and call it is what we're going to do.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's about 2 hours or so, roughly, which is what you had said.
Yeah. So, but
that's good. That's good. I mean, yeah, I'm old. I get tired, Josh.
It's all good. No,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, no.
No, I say this like this, like, again, and then right there and then it's like, well, you don't really want to come on the show. And that's fine.
No, that's, do you know what one of the rudest things that I think technology has done is call waiting.
Yes.
I hate that. I
hate it, and I like. I'm going to admit I like both sides.
I know there's times when, yes, if you're waiting for a call, whether your mother, to find out if your mother's died or not, yeah, you've got to have a call waiting. You know, there's times, right?
Oh, sure.
But if it's a call and you know it's just it's somebody who will leave a message or call back or whatever, then let them leave a message and call back, right?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I kind of had that. I kind of had that even before this era, because it's something I learned. Like, if I still remember back in the day, you answer the phone. I used to take messages the old-fashioned way. Hey, once upon a time.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's like, what? Messages? Like, yeah, we used to answer the phone, no problem. Now I'm like, if I don't know the number, I might be like, okay, you know what? If it's important, I'll leave a message. And I understand that etiquette. I actually do understand that that's why that's a thing.
Right? Well, in this day and age of so many sales calls and scam calls and everything else, again, it's a fair call.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's one of those things I've learned and I've understood. It's just, some things are just a product of the age. But I do think, like I said, one of the things I've learned, there's basic etiquette that works everywhere and anywhere. And if someone doesn't follow that, if someone doesn't respect it, then I'm going to treat you accordingly. I'm at that point where I'm old enough that if I feel like, oh, okay, you're not taking this seriously, then I guess I'm not going to take you seriously either.
No, I feel quite valid then in saying, have a nice day, and walking away.
Yep. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like, I don't have time. Like that's what it comes right down to, is I just don't.
And I'll tell you something, another 32 years I am ahead of you. In the next 32 years, that is going to become it's going to become more and more important every single day.
Well, so I know this. I'm actually kind of terrified. I got here where I'm at faster than my dad did, faster than my grandmother did.
Yeah.
I might be like, by the time I'm 50, I might be like this holy terror that just traumatizes people. Why are you here? Good day. Slam. I know what I mean.
No. My mother got more, I don't even know what the word is. She got less argumentative.
Yeah.
Less bossy. And maybe she was only bossy with me because I was her daughter.
She had to prepare you.
She listened more,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah, so there are things that come with,
Oh, sure.
yeah, with the age. Anyway, so show me what you got there, boy. What have you been working on?
So I've been working on a couple things. So again, I'm drawing Nikki Nash. So this, I think, is going to be her birthday present. Not this one. This one.
Oh, there you go.
That's gonna be her birthday present. I think.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very folk arty.
Yep. No, it's been a journey, and I'm trying. I'm going to probably be drawing her for a little bit more just to get a better hang of her. Because again, I get to kill her in my book. So, but
yeah. Ah, yes. Well,
but,
I think mine is done.
Yours
Which way
awesome.
is up?
That's really cool. That is really, really cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to describe this. It is a house in the middle of nowhere and everywhere.
Yep. Could have been a barn at one time. We're not sure.
I don't think it's a barn. I think it's a quiet little house in the middle of nowhere. It could be any kind of home.
This is true.
Any kind of place in any kind of time.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good place. So I'm in Canmore, and yes, there are some silly things we could talk about another day. I'm sure we will. I hope you come.
Okay, we could talk a long time, but we don't need to. We really don't need to.
No.
Some of these things.
But I will say one of the neatest things about being out here in a place like this in this time is little treasures like you don't expect. I'm not talking. So anyone that comes to Canmore, there's what I call like the white suburbia, like the party area of the city. And you can tell where it is because it's at the top of the hill and they're all these obnoxiously large places. And in a small town, rich people, nothing better to do. Guess what they're doing? That is just the way it is, right?
Okay.
Right. But my favorite part about towns like the city like this is like the little one of a kind neat things. Like you go down like Highway 1, like a little bit farther east, going back towards Calgary, you'll sometimes see like these little houses that are by themselves, nothing around them. It's just like a quiet little, and it's you wouldn't, if you didn't see it, look for it, you wouldn't see it. And It's just like, that's cool. Like for me, like that, like that's the part where it's like, sometimes you're in a place where you can just get lost in the moment, and that's going back to little things.
Yeah.
Canmore's
good for that. I went there about 35 years ago when I was going through a rough patch, and I stayed in a bed and breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked over that place upside down, inside out, and backwards. It's kind of a cool place.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
For sure. Well, my boy.
Well, we gotta do. Yeah. So before we wrap up, let's do some actual business shit for a minute. How can people find you? Get your books, right? How can they do that?
Well, read. If you want a clean read. I write. I have a 4-book series of Canadian, more or less cozy mysteries, cross between cozy and puzzle mysteries. And I have an historical, The Left Behind Bride, based on my mother's life, left as a widow between the First World War and the Second World War. And of course, my Tools Not Rules, which came out, that tells how I did it all. And you can find me at Mahrie G. Reid, MAHRIE, G for gorgeous, Reid, REID. And you can add a .com to get the website And if you search that, you will find me in various places like Facebook and Twitter and all of those other things.
Very cool. So I'm going to ask one last thing before we go, and that's this. Will it be 600 episodes or nearly 700 episodes before you come back and see me again?
Not necessarily, no. I don't think we better wait that long.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you here. Okay, I'm working now on what I hope will be a 3-book group for Mrs. Morrison, and the first one is Mrs. Morrison Meets Murder. Yeah. And it's for the 60-something crowd.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, dear. So maybe somewhere along the production of those, we'll be able to catch up like this again. I haven't seen you this long or this close up for probably 5 years. When was that book sale that we were all at in North?
The last time I recall seeing you, but this is her Amazon in case you want to find her stuff there, folks. And there's that, and right, and there we go. And and I'm just looking at this. Here's what I've learned and seen. I think it was the last two times I saw you was When Words Collide, right before I disappeared. I'm going to say 3 years. I feel like 3 years.
Yeah, that's right too. We did at WWC When Words Collide. Right, you're right. Yeah. True. Yeah, so that was. We've always had this little correspondence here and there, but to actually sit and talk, yeah.
Well, it was just I remember that. I remember the last time I saw you because we were out there. It was cool because it was one of those moments where it was cool because I got to go around to everybody and thank them. And
okay.
Yeah, so no, because I knew I was leaving Calgary and I knew like this was where most everybody was.
Yes.
So I made it a small little point. Again, we're going back to little things here. I made it a small point to go to everybody I knew that helped shape me for who I am, and I thanked them.
Cool.
I've never on a personal small note, the romance group in particular, some of them were in tears because it was
yes.
Because one in particular, I'm not gonna name her because she'll get really mad at me if I do. It shocked her because it was one of those moments like I don't think she realized what door she opened for me when she did what she did.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
again, it's a little thing but you always be grateful for those little things.
That is,
you wouldn't be who you are.
Yeah.
I would not have respected many of the amazing women that have come out there. Some of them making me blushing like a schoolboy just at how dirty-minded they are.
Well, I'll tell you, the Alberta Romance Writers Association, ARWA, there's a reason that we are still a functioning, happy group. And next year we'll be celebrating our 35th year as a group.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do the craft of writing and we take care of people. Those are our 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
And we have now, of course, expanded. We don't just do romance.
No, and
we have everything. We have everything, even the stuff that would really make me blush.
Yes, which is some of it's incredible. And to you ladies, if you are listening or watching this, you guys still rock. And on that note, I think we have an interview here, Mahrie. What do you think?
I think it's just fine, dear.
Yeah. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, yes. On that note, here's what I'm going to do for everybody watching, unless I've been doing this every episode, and that is because I'm a trained professional. This is me being a trained professional on the air, folks. I almost know what I'm doing. I swear. Solemnly swear. So this is what I've been doing every time. This is my book, Alice 1. It's coming out December 1st. So if you guys want to click the link, if you go to where this is on Facebook, right? If you go to this is on Facebook, right? It's there too. You guys can order the book. It's Alice Meet Alice's Pandora. And like I said, facing Jason of the Argonauts in a game of croquet unlike any other you've ever seen. I promise it's a wild ride. If you like this, what you see on this channel, hit the follow button on twitch.tv/justjoshingpodcast. I'm on YouTube as well. Joshua Pantellaresco. Hit the like, subscribe, enable notifications. A lot of past interviews are up there. To everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired.
Pleasure, Joss, and good night, everyone. Glad you tuned in.
All right, we'll just go with her. Have yourself a great night, everybody.